Hi, this is Ashio. Welcome back to Angels with Scaly Wings. We started the Freefall mod, and there's quite a lot of different things going on. We've got a bullet wound in our leg, which means we can't move around that much. Adine's kind of hanging out with us, which is nice. Anna is being summoned to court. She's got lots of trouble right now, and we just had a conversation with her. But we're going to find out a little bit more. We're also plagued by nightmares. But tonight, my mind was oddly peaceful. No visions of dragons, tragic events, or strange scenarios. All I saw were the stars, quietly drifting by. A vivid dream to be sure, but not unpleasant. They reminded me of something though, vaguely. It almost felt like when I was first... Oh, knocking at the door. My dreams are interrupted by someone knocking on the front door. I woke with a start. It was still dark outside. It had to be around midnight at least. Strange. Who needed me at this time of night, and why? Was there trouble? I pulled myself out of bed and quickly threw on some clothes. Hello? Who is it? Nadine. No goggles. What's up? Hey. If the strange time of night wasn't enough to give away something was wrong, then her expression filled in the rest. She wasn't even wearing her flying goggles. What are you doing here? Something the matter? Would it be alright if I came in for a bit? I'd rather not explain myself out here. It's a little cold. Of course, come in. Thanks. I held the door open for her as she despondently stepped past me to come inside. She sat down on the nearest sofa, looking moderately uncomfortable. I decided to join her and sat down next to her. She fidgeted awkwardly with her wings, clearly unsure how to begin. What's on your mind? Something must be bothering you, I can tell. I've never seen you like this before. This is going to sound so stupid. I'm not even entirely sure why I'm here myself. I reserve judgment on that. It can't be that stupid if you're here so late. Not too sure about that. I've been having such terrible nightmares. Oh, I see. I told you it was stupid. Nightmares kinda sounds familiar. What kind of nightmares? They were like nothing else. I've been having them for a few days now, but this one was just... I've never had any dream feel so horrifying before. This one was so vivid, lifelike. If I hadn't woken up, I would have sworn it was real. It still feels real, actually. Definitely familiar. Why don't you tell me about it? Okay. When it began, I could see the sky was coloured dark red. The asteroid was coming. It was huge and fiery, and it must have been many kilometres across. It wouldn't have been more than a few minutes before it made its collision. There was nothing anybody could do to stop it anymore. Emily, Vara and I were huddled together in my apartment, and they were so scared. We were all scared. I could only do my best to comfort them, but there was no hiding the fact that within moments we were all going to die. We said our final goodbyes to each other. When the asteroid finally impacted, the shockwave was cataclysmic. The whole planet shook, like every explosive ever made had gone off at once. When the shockwave reached us, it spared absolutely nothing. Every building and object around us was smashed to bits. The final second felt like an eternity. I could feel my own scales and flesh falling away. Vara, Emily, I wanted to close my eyes. I couldn't bear to watch them be torn to pieces, but I couldn't. Afterwards, I couldn't feel any pain. Couldn't feel anything. Just an emptiness. And that's when I woke up. I almost screamed. I couldn't stop shaking. That sounds like it was harrowing. It made me feel sick to my stomach. I had to get out of my apartment. I felt like I had to be anywhere but there. Anything to get out of my own head. This is where I ended up. Well, I did say you're always welcome to come get things off your mind with me. I think that's part of the reason I came. I did just sort of leave without thinking. My brain kinda just went into autopilot. I'm sorry to have woken you up so late. I know they're just stupid dreams and all. I just feel like such a mess right now. They're just dreams. They're kind of more than that. Should we tell her? It was probably time I told her. It would hurt, but I couldn't keep the secret any longer. We're getting these dreams as well. Adine, I gotta tell you something. Something that probably won't make you feel any better right now. But I think it's something you have the right to know, especially since it's affecting you this much. Go on. It might get a little hard to follow. It might even be difficult to believe. Perhaps it would be better if you saved any questions for afterward. She nodded and sat quietly, waiting for me to continue. Do you remember when I asked you what you would say if I told you that I was a time traveller? I do. Well, I am. You're not joking, are you? No. I began to recount the details of the past few weeks. I explained in vague detail how the portal worked and how it allowed for travel across time and the amnesiac effect it provided. I told her how after the final encounter with Reza, it had become apparent that this wasn't the first time through the loop. The conversation I had with my other self, how we both wished we could have stayed here with Adine and the other dragons, how we were trying so hard to achieve an outcome that suited everyone, even if it meant trying forever. It turned out to be a rather lengthy explanation, but Adine had sat quietly and listened throughout. However, her expression grew more and more grim the further I got. There's one last thing that brings it all back around. I guess you could say it's the whole point of all of this. They weren't just dreams, were they? I don't believe so. They're most likely an effect of the repeated time travel, memories that your alternate selves would have had. I've also been having strange and vivid dreams the whole time I've been here. At first, I wasn't sure why. But at this point I think I understand. They were visions of events that took place in timelines I'd left behind. And, from what you've told me, it seems that I've not been the only one having them. You won't be the only dragon having sleepless nights. Which means what I saw tonight. It really happened. Yes, I'm sorry. It might have been in another time, but it really did happen. I'll wait for you. That's what I said, wasn't it? You remember that? Do you? Can't I just come with you? Unfortunately, no. These coordinates are tied to my biometric data. Only I can use them. Oh, well. Don't worry. I'll be back before you realise it, and nothing would have happened. I'll wait for you. Yeah, I do remember. You promised that I wouldn't have to see that. That you would be back, and none of it would have happened. I'm sorry, Adine, but it seems I was wrong. I couldn't retroactively change time like that. I could only create a different future. A better one. Emily and Vara. You were right about one thing, though. That didn't make me feel better at all. As if someone had opened a floodgate, Adine's tears began to spill forth uncontrollably. Heavy sobs racked her frame, the grief and stress finally overwhelming her. I went to put my arm around her to provide comfort. At the slightest reminder of my touch, she immediately pressed her distraught face into my chest, grabbing my shirt with her claws and weeping harder. You're supposed to help us. Help them. I wrapped my arms around her tired frame, gently stroking her back and spines. I'd never seen her this upset before, and I knew that I hated it. It was all that I could do, not to burst into tears myself. I let her cry into my chest for some time, her tears soaking the front of my clothes. All I could do at this point was to be the cushion that she desperately needed. Eventually, her heavy staggered breathing smoothed out, and her sobs turned into quiet sniffles as she slowly calmed down. At the end, she just lay quietly underneath my arms, and we both sat there, listening to each other's breathing. I'm sorry. For what? I didn't mean to take it out on you. It's not really your fault. I know it's not even the same you anymore. Well, me is me, I'm still myself, and we all share the same memories after all. I guess that's true. I was going to be angry at you for abandoning us, but that wouldn't have been fair. You did what you did, to achieve a better outcome for all of us, so that we wouldn't have to die. You even succeeded. We wouldn't be here otherwise, but it upsets me too. It hurts, knowing that I had to leave you behind. It was the only thing I could do. It might not have been abandonment, but that's what it feels like. And it also hurts, knowing that I've had to let the previous you go now. There's nothing that can be done anymore. And I'm not very good at goodbyes. I continue to give her back small, gentle rubs. I'm sorry, Adine. It's not fair that you had to experience something like that when you didn't need to. Hopefully, in their timeline, like the Adine who died, hopefully her dreams were of happier areas, happier timelines. Maybe that's something that we can think about. She sniffed. A single, defiant tear ran down her cheek. Those poor kids. They didn't deserve such an end. Nobody deserved it. I think we thought that by going back, we could undo everything. We didn't want anyone to have to suffer. Now I realised that theory was invalidated the moment my other self went back through the portal. We couldn't be having this discussion if he's trying to make sure it never does. Time travel's a bit more confusing than I anticipated, and it was already a stretch to begin with. You're right, I don't really understand it, but maybe it's better if we don't try to. It doesn't matter now anyway. How many times have you... We lost count. There's a lot of yous out there, huh? Most of them probably dead. I'm sure Izmi didn't need the hassle of my clones causing confusion for myself. Seems we've all died a lot then. The dream where I took part in the stunt flying competition with my injured wing. During my performance, it locked up and I fell from the sky helplessly. I broke my neck when I hit the ground. I guess you saved me from that too, huh? Yeah, guess I did. You didn't even know? You were just looking out for me. After that, we both continued to sit with each other in silence. She'd run out of things to say, it seemed. It took me a while to notice, but it had been 2 hours since Adine had first come in, and now it was very late. Adine? Huh? It's awfully late, and I don't think you're in much condition to go home by yourself. Do you think you want to stay here for the night? Stay? For the night? I'm really not sure if... Yes, please. Then my place is yours for tonight. I finally let go of Adine, who let out a small whimper, and went to go prepare fresh sheets for her. When I'd finished, she was still sitting out in the living room. Adine, you coming? Wait, you're letting me sleep in your bed? I assumed I was going to be sleeping on the sofa. To hell with that. The sofa isn't that comfortable. What sort of host would I be if I let you do that? You're such an altruist. Now I feel bad for making you sleep on the beanbag when you stayed at mine. Don't worry about that. That beanbag was comfortable enough. Besides, I insisted it was okay, remember? If you say so. Adine followed me into the bedroom and lowered herself onto the bed. She flopped her head on the pillow and pulled the blanket up slightly. Comfortable? It's not fair. Even your bed's better than mine. I'll take that as a yes then. Well, good night. I turned to leave. I could feel the gradual onset of sleep and the sofa was calling my name. But something grabbed my hand before I could take another step away. Wait. Could you please stay with me? I don't think I could bear to be alone again tonight. I mean, she's had real trauma and we've just downloaded a lot of awful things onto her, so we should keep her company, yes. I gave Adine's clawed hand a squeeze. Sure. Thanks. This won't make you feel awkward? Not if it doesn't for you. I let go of Adine's hand and began to remove my outer layer of clothing. Adine's curious gaze did not go unnoticed, however, as she silently watched me disrobe. It made me feel shy, actually. I guess you don't sleep in those then? No, it would get too hot and uncomfortable, especially with a thicker blanket. I slid in next to Adine on the other side of the bed and laid upon my back. While it was by no means a small bed, there wasn't quite enough room for 2 people to fit. We were both rather close. It stirred a few butterflies in my stomach. I tilted my head to look at Adine, and she was already on her side, looking back at me. Feeling any better? A little. I rolled over onto my side to face her too. Although it was dark, I could still see her deep magenta eyes reflecting in the little light remaining, and how they were staring directly into my own. Their beauty was wondrous to me, like 2 tormenting given intelligence. And yet, behind them, I saw her hiding the sadness she couldn't quite seem to shake, or perhaps it was fear. Maybe I should do something to help settle her down. Hug, kiss, leave her be. I think comfort, hug. Pushing any nervous thoughts out of my mind, I slowly reached out my arm and slid it across her shoulder. I could feel every scale underneath my hand as I manoeuvred it down her back. She didn't pull away. Instead, she shuffled closer to me, closing the gap between us, until I could feel her warm, soft scales against my chest. My other hand found itself sliding underneath her, until I was holding her in both arms. She drooped her head to rest against my chest once again. I was sure that she could hear my heartbeat faster. You feel so warm. I felt her own winged arms slide around my back, pulling me tighter against her. And soft. We both laid in each other's embrace for a long time, listening to the slow rise and fall of each other's breaths. Hers were creating a warm patch on my bare skin on account of her face being pressed so close. With my upper hand already upon her back, I gently massaged her shoulder blades in slow circular motions. A familiar, low, deep vibrating noise escaped from her throat. Perhaps not so much of a purr, but more of a contented growling. Someone likes that. A deep sigh built up in her chest, which she released out of her nose. What are we even doing? I've been trying not to think about it. Adine, no, don't answer. I wouldn't even know what to say right now anyway. I don't know. She let out another sigh. I think we need to talk, but that can wait for tomorrow. For now, I think I just want to enjoy whatever this is. Okay. She nuzzled at my chest happily. With you here, I feel safe. I'm glad you're here too, Adine. Sweet dreams. Good night. Thanks. With her final words spoken for the night, we both laid there, enjoying each other's company. A cocktail of unusual emotions mixed throughout me. Nadine. Eventually, the slow wave of fatigue engulfed me, carrying me off into sleep's deep abyss. But this time, I was happy I had someone else to follow me down. And I knew she would finally have a peaceful sleep. I'd make sure of it. That was nice. Hopefully the nightmares weren't so bad. The soft first few rays of sun shining through the window broke sleep's hold over me. My groggy mind began to piece together the memories of last night. Though the lemon-scaled wyverness underneath my arm was a better reminder than anything else. She'd obviously rolled over during the night, as her back was now pressed against my chest and my arm was curled around her soft underbelly. Still sleeping peacefully. I hadn't the heart to wake her. Eventually, she began to stir beneath my arm, her tail performing telltale wriggles against my leg, but she did her best not to move. Come on, silly, don't pretend to be asleep still. 5 more minutes. Don't you have work soon? I got time. Adine's tail curled itself around my leg. She clearly had no intention of letting me leave. As long as you stay right there. I had no complaints though. You know, I think this is what perfect feels like. That's a little bold of you, considering what you were trying to say last night. Tonight, after work, I promise. Alright? We spent a few more minutes laying together, enjoying the glow of the early morning sun gently warming us both. My hand found itself gently brushing her smooth abdomen, much to the subtle delight of the happy dragoness. Eventually, Adine rolled over to face me, drawing a sigh. I really should go. Duty calls. The people are begging for their heroine. Go, be the delivery flyer they all need. Thanks again for letting me stay. It really means a lot. My pleasure. I hope it was. It was mine too. With that, she gave me a peck on the cheek and slid out from underneath my arm. I heard the thunk of her powerful legs making contact with the floor and the creaks of her stiff joints as she stretched out her neck and wings. I'll see you this afternoon, don't forget. Of course not. Have a good day. You too. I saw her give me one final smile before she exited. And then she was gone. I spread out on the bed, enjoying the warm spot where she once laid. Today, I decided, was going to be a good day. What are we going to do with our day? Oh, phone's ringing. The ringing sound shook me out of my musings. Since when did anyone ever call me? Hello? Morning, Squishy. Guess who? What, Anna? What? You're not calling me from prison, are you? I'll give you the details soon, but get your butt over to my lab. We got work to do. Huh? Okay, let's go. Anna, what do you need? We'll do what we can. Morning, jailbird. Morning yourself. Look at you, not even wearing an appropriate lab coat. Some highly qualified assistant you are. I'm not sure I follow. Then get in here and I'll give you the rundown. So I deduce that by the fact that you're here and not dozing in a cell somewhere, the trial went better than you predicted. I suppose you might say that. Oh, Remy's here. I spun around. A familiar face was sitting on the end of the bench near the door. Remy, you're here too. Unfortunately. Don't mind me. I'll let Anna do any recounting. Well, as you might have guessed, the court has so graciously decided to keep me out of jail. According to the most charitable of opinions, I'm too valuable to be kept under lock and key. My important skills would be wasted. You should have heard them, Mushio, the bittersweet words of bureaucrats. Under normal circumstances, I might have been angry at being objectified as a tool so openly, but you know what? Since I'm really nice and free at the moment, I might just be able to let it go. Oh, and the scolding was just delightful too. Unprofessional behaviour this, breach of ethics that. But anyway, I digress. We don't have all day to spend listening to me moan. My sentence is that I'm allowed to stay out of prison, given some conditions. Cool, excellent news. But what are the conditions? Well, fines for one thing, but that's not really unexpected. There's also the fee of being prosecuted, which makes just perfect sense. I also have to work off the time I would have spent incarcerated by doing, community service. Ouch. It's better than dying in prison. What kind of service? Like cleaning the streets or graffiti removal? Oh please, the streets here are clean enough as they are. Her service will consist of spending time looking after the children at the orphanage for a few days each week. That doesn't sound so bad. I actually know one of the volunteers there. You two might even get along. Besides, even though it might technically be a punishment, perhaps doing something other than working yourself to death could do some good for you. Always a silver lining to look for, huh? Speaking of working myself to death, there is one more condition to my lenient sentence. Oh, and believe me, this one's quite the kicker. During the proceedings, as an addendum to the issue of my crime, the topic of my, condition was brought up. The status of my rapidly deteriorating health was brought to the attention of the court. In a shocking twist of sympathy, it was actually one of the factors that prevented me from being locked up. I'm not exactly sure how or who, but someone has been going through some of my personal information, because that's the real epitome of professional behaviour, you know. Personal information that should have been kept between my doctor and I. I'm not really sure how I feel about that right now, but as long as it contributed toward keeping me from being a statistic, I'll try my best to forget about it. Though, I hope whoever got away with it is happy with themselves. In my opinion, they should be put up on the defendant's platform as well. Anyway, although they told me that it was in no way excused the breach of my terms, they found themselves sympathetic toward my need. It's almost as if they remembered those wonderful little values they pride themselves in quoting verbatim. Either that, or they realised that I'm going to be no use to them when I'm dead. So, along with community service, I'm allowed to return to my work, albeit under tense supervision. Because that's just what I needed, more babysitting. And for now, I've been ordered to continue researching just one thing, which is... With a coy smirk, she reached into a pile of equipment that had been prepared on the bench, and slid a familiar-looking object across it toward me. It was one of the PDAs I'd brought with me through the portal. Oh, not much really. I just have to stop myself from dying from some horrific disease, along with thousands of others. No way they let you have it back. Actually, that's part of the reason I'm here. Ever since you recovered the PDAs after they were stolen by Reza, they've been in my possession for thorough analysis. It would seem I made a few interesting discoveries while doing so. but since we never got to fulfill our end of the deal to humanity, these devices have since become minor ethical dilemmas. We thought it would be best if we got your consent to continue to use them as we'd intended. Well, I never intended on raising any arguments over their use. Since they're going to be stuck here, anything that comes from the information they contain benefits me as much as anybody else here. Keeping them to myself would just be a dreadful waste after all. I'm glad that we can all agree then. Do you even know how much money you could possibly make if you were to sell those things? It would set you and any family you might have up for life, and then some. I think the goodwill is more important to me. I don't consider that they were ever really mine to begin with. Besides, if I did sell them, then it wouldn't be very likely you would ever get anywhere near one. As they are right now, once the information is extracted, I'm hoping a lot of it can become publicly available. Otherwise, it would turn into monetized private information that becomes sustainably harder to deal with. Fair point. We're still working on the means to properly interface the devices with our own computers, but I'm told that we should have a solution for that soon. For now though, you can have one of them back to use for your research. You think it might have been important to tell me at any point that humans had already developed a cure for cancer? I'm not sure it would have made any difference. At least, certainly not now that the portal's shut for good. I would have liked to know. At least, if I'd have known that the information I've been tearing my scales off for months to find has been sitting on those PDAs the entire time. I even had one in my own claws. If only I'd been given the time to look. I think that the stress of knowing and not being able to do anything would have caused you more harm than good. It was agreed that the information on the devices was not to be capitalised on until the trade had been completed fairly. It's highly unlikely that you would have been able to do anything with the knowledge even if you had known. I doubt that would have stopped me. Yesterday, it seemed like you'd had enough on your plate to deal with as it was. I think it would just be adding insult to injury. He's got a point there. When you came into the courtroom this morning, you looked like you were about to give up on life. In contrast, you were looking so bewildered when you left. I'd like to see what your face looks like when your whole life pulled a whole 180 in a single morning. I walked into that room expecting it was all over for me, and I left being given everything I needed for that to not be true. I don't recall ever having knocked on the door of fortune before, but damn if she's never smiled so brightly. I'll leave the I told you so's for another time, I think. One last thing before I leave you two to your work. Since a lot of the information on the PDAs has yet to be audited for safety, Anna is not yet allowed to read through them without supervision anymore. What? You don't trust her? It's not my decision, unfortunately, but as it were, considering her recent actions, it's been decided it would be unwise to let her have uncontrolled reign over such a large amount of potentially dangerous intelligence. I'm not sure how the council would react if they found you building railguns in here. I'm a biologist, Remy, not a physicist. Besides, I'm not sure if railguns are known for their tumour shrinking properties. The only thing I'm interested in right now is not dying. I'll give you the credit you're due, Anna. Considering it's you we're talking about here, you'll probably have done that within a week. I trust that you can keep her on the right track. Once we're able to extract all the data properly, we'll let you know. Then we could arrange some printed copies of the information you require, or something similar. Of course, thanks Remy. And with that, I'll leave you both to it. Anna, don't forget that your community service starts tomorrow at 5 PM. Oh, and the auditor will be visiting every few days to check on the work you two are doing. Yeah, I remember. Excellent. Bye for now then. See ya. Thanks, Remy. Okay, enough chit-chat and sitting around. We have a terminal illness to cure. Anna wasted no time in swiping the PDA from the table and booting it up with an expression that I could only describe as hunger. I pulled up a chair and sat next to her as she busily swiped through several menus. Remy said he bookmarked it somewhere here. Ah, here we go. Symptoms, causes, diagnosis and classification. At least everything's organised properly. Management and treatment. Here we go. Radiation therapy, chemotherapy, surgery, laser therapy. Wow, you guys have been trying this for ages. Are we really going to have to go through all of this? Try the immunotherapy section. I seem to remember that's where most successful outcomes were. I hope so, if possible. I'd love to stay the hell away from pumping myself with toxic chemo drugs. Guess that means you got that far at least. Yeah, we've had that for some time. The results haven't exactly been stellar, I'll tell you that. ST201. A highly efficient immuno-enhancing agent injected directly into solid tumours, triggering a local T-cell response that attacks cancer cells throughout the body. Humans actually managed to find a way to get their own immune system to destroy cancer. That's incredible. It's certainly much preferable to the previous alternative methods. You don't say. We spent some time scrolling through the information together. Anna seemed to understand a lot more of it than I did, but I was doing my best to keep up. Damn, alright. Some of this stuff's going to be difficult. Single-stranded synthetic DNA of a certain type, specific proteins. Some of this may be very specific to humans, as I'm sure you're aware. Is that doubt I hear? You bet your ass it's not. We're already one step in, since we already have 4 human DNA samples to make comparisons with. Let's hope the gene that produces this kind of protein is in the 90% of similarity that we share. Okay, we got a whole lot of reading to do. We're also going to need to have some live models organised for testing on, and a nice long list of chemicals and other equipment brought up. Get your lab clothes on, it's time we got busy. Nice. We spent the remainder of the day reading the reports and articles together, as well as closely studying the important differences between dragon and human genes. As expected, the similarity between human and dragon DNA was only helpful to a certain extent, and workarounds were going to be needed. However, Anna was confident that redeveloping the human cure was very possible. It would just take time and hard work. Soon, most of the day had passed, and we barely noticed. Productive work. Well, the guys with the HPLC say that they won't be finished with the products until tomorrow. Can't imagine that decomposing DNA is a simple job. Tell me about it. Read anything else on there that might be helpful? Well, I've identified about 20 dragon genes that are closest to some of the human ones that we need. Some of them might be workable. Better than nothing, that's for sure. Speak of the time, how long have we been going now? Well, it's almost 5 o'clock. Look at that, you managed a whole 8-hour workday and didn't complain once. I might even start to think that you might be a better help than Damien. Actually, no, forget that. You could have been an unfeeling non-sentient slime, and I'd still prefer you. I'll take it as a compliment. You go ahead. Anyway, since we won't be getting what we need until tomorrow, I guess you can go home if you like. What about you? You're not going to stay all night again, are you? You know I can't leave you with the PDAs alone. Not sure how I would feel about knocking off this early. Haven't you got your community service? 5 PM is not early, it's normal? Normal? Maybe for you. Come on, we've made excellent progress today, and we have a solid looking plan. There's no need to go at breakneck pace anymore. I know you're worried about your health, but there are other aspects of health you need to look after as well. Okay, you're right. Let's just get out of here before I change my mind. And with that, I stood from the bench and took the PDA to one of the lockable containers along the back wall and secured it inside. Walking home then? Don't really have anywhere else to be. Then we'll go for a walk. Okay, I think that we can leave that there. We helped out Adine with some of her problems. We went into some heavy stuff, and Anna's side is suddenly looking a lot nicer as well. So we're going to go for a walk with Anna again in the next episode. This is Ushio signing off, and hopefully I will see you next time.